All right, so today is a little bit more of a MBA video than a farmer video. And the reason is because I have been asked the same question by three different people this week. And it's a really interesting question. And the answer has turned out to be something a little different than I originally anticipated it being. And so it's really fitting timing right now that I'm getting this question asked to me because today the Federal Reserve announced that they are going to hold rates constant at the 5.5% rate. They did indicate that even though there's no change today, they still think that there will be one this year, which probably will be at their November meeting. And they still predict that it will need to go to 5.75% before we can hold it and then maybe even have some interest rate decreases in the future. Now, you remember that the Federal Reserve, the inflation metric that they look at the most is core inflation. And core inflation today is still above 4%. So, and the target that they keep mentioning is 2%, which means that it's still been quite sticky, inflation, and they have not really seen the impact that they thought they'd see by now. It does seem to be trending the right way, but interest rates will probably continue to be high for a while. Now, why am I bringing this all up? Well, because the mortgage interest rates, which are indirectly impacted by the Federal Reserve interest rates, are likely to stay high for a while. It's just kind of the indication that we're seeing. And the question that I've had three times now this week is, hey, I really want to move. I got a reason that I don't want to stay where I'm at, but I feel like I'm stuck because of the high inflation. And so the really quick answer to that is that a lot of people are. The reason that the supply is low right now is because people have low interest rates in their mortgages, and so they don't want to sell their houses right now because they're in a good situation. So because people have been reluctant to sell their houses and get out of that situation, supply has remained low. Now, if you look at this just from a financial numbers perspective only, kind of the conventional wisdom would say if you have a really good interest rate, hang on to that and don't change that. But the point I want to make today is that sometimes you don't want to just follow kind of like the nerdy numbers guys like me that just say, well, of the strictest financial disciplines, you should definitely stay in the lowest interest rate you can. I'm not saying that you should be irresponsible with your decision making, but if you've been smart and managed your money, and by being smart and managing your money, you now have options, and there's something that you're trying to accomplish that's motivating you to think about this, the answer isn't always no. So I want to give you a specific example when I looked into this of what I was seeing. And what I found was that in all three of these cases, these people had quite a bit of equity in their home. And their motivation for moving is real. They really want to make this change. So I'm just going to give you one example scenario. So let's say that there's a family that they're going to sell their house for, let's call it somewhere over $700,000, and the mortgage is somewhere near $200,000, maybe a little bit higher than that. And so let's just assume that they have roughly $450,000 of equity in their home. Now I did the math, and I'll put this up here on the screen. And what this is showing is that if that family were to sell their house, and let's say that they, in this particular scenario, they want to buy a smaller house because they've had some kids move out and just don't need the same big house. So let's say that they buy a house for $600,000. Well, what you'll see here is that the payment on that, because of all the equity and because the loan amount is going to be so small, the payment on that is actually going to be $230 less than their existing principal and interest payment on their existing mortgage. So taking that equity reduces the loan amount, and then that small loan amount is now getting recast over a new 30-year mortgage, so it's amortized out over 30 years, and so the payment actually goes down. Now here's the other interesting thing is that the lender that I work with will do a refi with no lender fees when rates do come down. And so the scenario I've mapped out here in the spreadsheet is that, let's say that in a couple of years the rates are down in the fives, and I'm even going to just use 5% to make it simple. If that were to happen and the refi were to happen, that would mean that at that point the payment in total would be about $500 less than today. So as you can see, this is clearly not a scenario where somebody is stuck because of the high interest rates. For some people, they do very much have the options. And so I think each situation needs to be looked at independently, because sometimes the desire to move and the reason for moving outweighs this kind of like strict financial responsibility argument, or maybe not even responsibility is the right word, but they just stay in the lowest interest rate possible scenario. And that's not always the case. In this case, you can see that the cash flow for this family will actually improve by making a change like this. So definitely an option for them to at least consider. Sometimes we will watch a sports game where the team that you expect to lose wins, and so they'll say that's why we play the game. Well, in this case, I always say that's why we do the math, because you never know what that math's going to show you. In this case, it was something very interesting. What up, Big Red? Hey, leave him alone, Gus. There you go, Big Red. Yeah. There you go. Midnight. What up, Midnight? Get him, Gus. Get him. There you go. All right, Gus, leave him alone. Leave her be. Gus, come on. Come on, Gus. Good boy, bud. Come on. Come on. Yes, good boy. You might be a cattle dog after all. I don't think any of that was right, but whatever.